thank you so much for being here with me. You guys, I'm so excited to bring KINJA DIXON to you. KINJA, I met him at a business conference about 2 years ago. He was a motivational speaker. I was blown away by what he's been able to accomplish, just completely inspired by him. And I've been stalking him like a fan the last 2 years, just allowing him to pour into me so I can grow as a person as well. And you know, KINJA is a motivational speaker. He's an author. He is a leader in sales. He's accomplished so much. He's a marathon runner. There's nothing that this man hasn't done or isn't aspiring to do. And he just really blows me away. One of his books is called Recreationism. And Recreationism, he talks about the art of shaping our own reality, taking control of our destiny. He talks, another book is The Universal Talk Laws, where he talks again about using the correct language. How are we speaking to ourselves? And today, KINJA and I wanted to come together to discuss not individual things that are going on in life right now, but to talk about it on a universal level. We're not going to say what he said, she said, he did, anything like that. What we want to do is kind of cut back to the principles of human nature and have this discussion of, and remind everybody that we are in control of our own destiny. And I was saying to KINJA just before we went live, I said, he is somebody I have so much respect for that I have been following, someone who is further along on the growth path than I am, someone I look up to. And I said, KINJA, you don't need me, and you know this, to stand on the side of the road with a sign that says Black Lives Matter. You know, we both agree to this. I think to me, it's an insanity. We are all divinely created. We are all on this road to become our own personal selves, and we're all here with a mission. We just have to overcome ourselves. And another thing we wanted to do today is to, you know, to give you some tools to help you live in this time to overcome, because the media is not giving us tools. They're telling us whose fault it is, how you should feel. They're validating all these negative emotions. Part of their solution is shaming people. That's never a solution, ever. So with that introduction, KINJA, I'd love to just hear your words, your thoughts, and just if you can tell a little bit, I don't know if I mentioned, but KINJA has done an incredible TED Talk. And I'd love for you to just kind of touch on that, because you talk there about perception, how our perception is key.
It's amazing, and I thank you again for your time. And one of the things that I believe excited me about this conversation is because of the 15 years that I had in professional sales prior to retiring. And so my job for 15 years was to understand the resistance of the person coming in to talk to me and how to gently address their concerns and have them leave accepting the recommendations that I offered to help their lives enhance. And so when it comes to this topic, I'm in a unique space because my exterior has led so many people to believe that I think a certain way, because our lives are kind of geared towards making prejudgments based off of looking at people. But once people kind of dive into my life, then these thought processes could make a little more sense. But prior, so before I touch base about the people that I believe might not necessarily vibrate the way that I do, I have to make sure someone understands the foundation that I was raised upon. So first of all, I never knew anything about slavery. I remember one time around 10, 11 years old, when I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. We used to go to North Carolina for the summers. And I remember one time going I did not like scary movies, but I remember going into the adult room one day and seeing what I found out later, they were looking at roots. Okay. But when I went in, it was a scene that involved hitting of the gentleman who was the main character. And because of the isolation that my mother had me in, I ran out of the room as if it was a scary movie. So just to kind of tell you the incubation that my mother put me in, I had no idea about the damage that was inflicted physically, mentally for so many years to people that had this type of exterior. So as I got older, I didn't go outside in New York until I was 16 years old. And I used to hate it. But as I've grown and accomplished so much, because I never had a preset thought that someone could dominate me, I just continued to walk up the ladder of life without a thought that anyone could stop me. And one of the things that I will say kind of brought this all to a head, I talk about it in the prologue of my book, is me and one of my ex-girlfriends, the first young lady that I dated after the person that I talked about in the TED Talk. You know, she is very Afrocentric. That's one of the things it was different, but I was attracted to the difference. You know what I mean? Because I'm not the type to judge anyone based off their beliefs, as long as they're a good person. That's another thing with me. Like, I can disagree with you on a point, but see that you're disciplined and still respect you, because I see past the surface. You know what I mean? I dive into the person. Now, if you're just a hater type person, then I can respect it, but not kind of vibrate around it. But let me get back to the situation. So we were on our way to an African Day parade, and I parked my vehicle in Brooklyn, and we were getting out of the vehicle, and she said, "I hope none of them are out there." And now I'm talking about a young lady that is my shade as well. I don't get into the black or white thing, because that's a figment of our imagination. I'm chocolate, you're more along the lines of ivory, you know, but I don't get into black or white, because that was distinguished to separate and place limits and superiority and inferiority. So I don't buy into that, especially after looking at the history of when it started. You know what I mean? Like, it was started to separate. So why would I involve myself as an educated person in that type of system? Now, that's just me. I'm not blaming anybody for what they feel. Now, back to this. So when she said that, I remember it so clearly. I looked at her and was like, where did that thought come from? We weren't even, who are you talking about? White people. And I was like, how are we about to enjoy an African Day festival, and out of the thoughts, you just say that? And instantly, I remembered some of our talks as we got up to that point in our relationship. Her parents were very into making up for some of the damage that was done to people that had my exterior for a lot of their lives. So she was taught kind of the opposite of how I was taught. And I wasn't necessarily taught about it. I just wasn't exposed to it. But this is going to make so much sense to you. And I could hope that you and any viewer could kind of just understand how I developed the way I did. But instantly I looked at her, I said, where did that thought come from? And I thought about it, and I said, you know what, to try to make a point to her, I called my mother while we were on the phone. While we were in the car. And the reason why this is a memory that will always shine with me is because a few years later, my mother passed. So this is one of the times where we had kind of like a conference on the phone. But when I called my mother, I said, Ma, why didn't I know about slavery when I was coming up? What happened? And she said, KINJA, I just didn't think all of that history would help you. And I clouded up of tears, because I not only thought about the care that she had for me of not wanting to put the generational damage that she may have felt on my back, but it made me think about all the things that led me to being 35 years old, financially independent, retired at the #1 salesperson in the world, and how none of that might have happened if my mother would have had me walking around thinking that everybody was out to get me, even though that may have been the case. But I have my blinders on my whole life. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really get a taste of how a lot of people feel until I retired and started having clients where we would talk and I would see that they had an extra load on their shoulder that I felt was not something they were dealing with instantly. It was something that they were kind of born into from parents. Wait, make a long story short, that day was one of the most important days of my life because it not only had me understand why I felt so isolated and didn't agree with a lot of the things that people that looked like me felt, not judging them, just saying my life didn't come up that way, but it also made me feel compassion for the young lady, for the amount of people that are simply not only dealing with the pressures of life that they're going through, but the pressures of so many generations that came before them. So it's almost like starting your life with a 400-pound, 400-year weight on your shoulder. That right there in itself is just going to make life so much difficult for someone to trudge through. And so that explains the unique thought process that I have in regards to race relations or any type of a situation that involves separation. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's beautiful, and I've just watched a beautiful compilation of very successful people with what you said, and we have to use the words that they're telling us because people don't know what we're talking about. Otherwise, they use the words white and black. So to use that, these are successful Black men and people, and they were all asked in this compilation like about racism, and each one of them were like exactly like you. They did not let it burden them. Denzel Washington, when they asked him, what can we do about this? He said, we can stop talking about it. We can stop talking about it. And why I thought that was fascinating, and what we were saying before, is whatever the pain is that maybe a particular race has gone through, it's ignorant to think that there's only one race that will suffer. So each individual who is on this planet will suffer, will be persecuted to some degree or another. We've all, everyone has that story from high school that you were made fun of for your weight, for your hair color, for being so tall. Whatever you were made fun of, everyone is going to be in a pain. They have bad childhood, some people. And so the saying goes that you're either coming out of a pain, going into a pain, or you're preparing to enter a pain. Everyone is going through a struggle. And what I think is so brilliant is, and I love personal development because Wayne Dyer talks about, and this is forgiveness in general, and this is what Wayne Dyer talks about, carrying that burden, that 400-pound weight that you were talking about. And it made me think of that because Wayne Dyer says it's my favorite analogy. It makes me want to forgive everyone who's ever hurt me in any way, because he talks about it like carrying a sack of manure on your back. Mm-hmm. Every time I come to visit you, KINJA, I've got my sack of manure and it stinks, and I'm carrying this stink with me. And he's like, in reality, you would think, Andrew, you're insane, drop it. It smells, you're carrying it with you. And then he said, and every now and then I put it down, I open my bag of manure, I reach down and I kind of put it on myself just to remember how bad it is, how bad it smelled, how bad it felt. Relive the pain that I experienced when so-and-so said this to me, when so-and-so lied about me, when my grandfather did this to me, when my, whatever experience of pain that we've all had, we all have that sack of manure, we all carry it with us, and we all stop to remember the pain, the hurt, and it drags us down. If he was saying, if we could just drop it, if we could just drop that 400-pound bag, the heights we can ascend, the things we can accomplish, the missions and programs we can create, the books we could write. Where if you could talk about like your perception and how you spoke in your TED Talk about taking something and using a different language. So taking those hurts and writing a book, taking those hurts and reformatting the language and doing something positive with it, you know? I know.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh,
What I was gonna say as well is that's another piece that I believe I would hope anyone that's diving in, no matter how you look, can understand that the most important part of this life, I believe, comes down to the four pillars that I believe changed my life. Believe it or not, I was a 300-pound, 330-pound was my highest, functional alcoholic that was promiscuous, that thought that money was my value. I am now 170 pounds, 10% body fat. I'm saying, and what I'm saying this for is the difference in thought processes. I stopped drinking in 2009, October 31st, 2009. I'm going on my 4th year of celibacy until I get a wife that's my friend first. That will be in February. And I don't chase any monetary compensation anymore. Yes, I have a great investment style, but I create versus chase so things can grow organically from me. I say all those things to say that I don't believe I would have had the ability to address some of the deficiencies within my character if I had the weight of my mother's burdens on my back prior to me attempting to do those things. So what I love my mother for, even though people have said she sheltered me, she didn't expose me to what I should have been exposed to. I love her forever. Rest in peace, mother. She passed July 6, 2017. Is that she didn't know what she was doing, but her choice of not exposing me to something that brought damage to her was one of the best things I think she could have ever done. And when I read Sidney Poitier's book, The Measure of a Man, I don't know if many people are familiar with this, but he was the first gentleman that had my chocolate shade that won an Academy Award. And when you read his autobiography, he did not see himself in the mirror until he was 8 years old. He did not know anything about the racism deal until he moved from the islands to Florida and was walking with a gentleman that had your shade. And he got beat up and he didn't know why. And he learned that, wow, in the United States, people that look like me are considered lower on the totem pole. But what helped him get over it is his foundation was clear. And see, that's where a lot of parents of all shades that don't have necessarily the long-term psychological span, they start feeding things into their children at ages where they don't have the emotional intelligence to decipher and do what I did when I started realizing, wow, there are people out here, like if I'm caught in the wrong neighborhood, I could get hurt because of how I look. But when you're feeding fear of generational, I'll say ignorance and division into your child, they're coming up in not a clear type of a situation. So I say that to say that when I read, like you do, the thousands of people along the billions that have made it up the ladder of success with the least stress, it's because they somehow, even if they had it, they knew how to peel it back and allow their inner spirit to dominate so that they can move with the most creativity that they have. Because if you have the weight of anger, division, jealousy, envy, any type of those emotions that put you in a place of lower vibration, it just lowers your creativity. And to speak on what you were saying, so I understand someone right now that feels I have to get out here and speak because I have been kind of taught that that is the only way I can get things accomplished. And so I don't knock it because I understand it. And like I said in one of my posts recently, I pray that your identification can get you what you like. I just don't associate with colors. I don't associate with anything that is limiting, but I also have the wordplay to say it in a way where I'm not going to offend a person that is only doing the best they know how, because that's what I have realized. And I'll end this session of the talk with this. If you have, I've helped out several women that have been abused. And I'm talking about abused to the point where, I mean, Clorox in the, I have one of my older clients slash friends who she found out that one of her boyfriends put Clorox in the solution that she was going to use to douche. Like, so I'm talking about fighting, beating up, knives, all types of stuff. And so imagine an abuser, right? Abusing a female and telling her, from this point on, your name is abused and my name is abuser. From this point on, when you walk around, you say abuse when I talk to you. And when you talk to me, you say abuser to me from here on out for the rest of your life. Yeah, that's how I feel about white and black. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. Somebody realized, wow, I'm going to be white, which is more in alignment with supremacy, not supremacy, but more supreme, divine, and I'm going to make you black because of this. And so as I started studying, remember my foundation, once I understood the origin, I just couldn't identify with something that started in such a place of division. And my goal is that, see, what I hope someone that's looking at this is like, man, this mixed up black man, what's wrong with you? Is I hope you can get that the way I'm living doesn't stop love, unity. It doesn't stop wanting to penalize anybody that hurts anybody at any point in time, whether on the police force or out in public. It doesn't stop any of the goals that are going to help bring our world together. It just eliminates me from identifying with something that was created to put shackles mentally on me. That's all. And on the flip side, I have clients that are of the ivory shade that realize they're older now in their 60s and 70s. And I have one that told me, she said, I realized that the reason why I am aging at such a rapid space as far as my skin and as far as how I feel is because my parents taught me that people that look like you are not equal to me. But my whole life, I've seen you all do everything. And I realized that it's put stress on me. I was raised to believe that I was superior, but I'm seeing all of these people that I was taught are beneath me doing things that I wish I could do. And it added so much stress to me. And I believe that my skin tone, my things are happening to me that are associated with these ignorant things that were taught to me when I was small. So like you said, it hurts everybody that wants to include themselves in this situation that we see historically. It's not really doing anything except division, stress, damage. Think about all the innocent bystanders, protesters that were rightfully protesting, and people that were protecting their places of work that were killed because of something that originated, and we are familiar with, originated in separation, division, hatred, superiority, inferiority, and the whole domino effect of mixed up emotions. Forgive me. Like I said, this is an honor for me because first of all, I get invites a lot, but if I don't respect the person based off their journey, because we became social media friends shortly after the situation, I respect you as a person because I've read several of your posts that, yes, some of them may be strong, you know what I mean? But I'm like, wow, okay, I respect her being able to walk in her path and want to provide a better world for her family and her children. and just the fact that you're consistent and don't seem to get swayed by the wind. You know what I mean? Like some people, depending on what's going on, they talking like this. There's something else going on. You are consistently, and honestly, from my point of view, consistently wanting us all to increase and walk toward this path of unlimited potential. So I salute you again.
I love that. And I wanted to say too, if we go back to what we're saying, I'm a firm believer in the duality of evil and good, God and Satan. And I think we all forget, we all go to church, the most of us go to church or we pray or something to that, you know, we do something along those lines for our spiritual well-being. All of a sudden we forget when these issues come up, and we forget that we are being played by the master manipulator. Evil manipulates, distorts, shames, punishes, degrades, says you're superior, tells the other one they're not, we are being played. And I think that's what you're saying in your message is we all need to stop playing the game. We all need to stop feeling the way we're told to feel. We all need to stop, you know, and just focus on ourselves, focus on loving, focus on making sure that we're right with God. Because I think what's happening in our country, KINJA, is we are replacing the 10 Commandments with political correctness. And political correctness is coming from this evil. It looks good. It looks pretty. It looks like it's doing the right thing. It looks like, you know, if you're not doing certain things that are politically correct, then you're not a good person. So we've kind of taken away the 10 Commandments. We've replaced it with political correctness. And it's an evil facade of what God has commanded us to do. And we're all falling for it because it looks good. And I think a lot of people who are, you know, following the media and really concerned about this, they're good people. At the end of the day, I believe I put out a letter by the Archbishop in our Catholic Church, and he does an open letter to Trump, and he's like, there's so much evil going on right now. We're being played. So we just all have to focus on ourselves, growing. I kind of like what you're saying, like let's drop the sack of manure. Like, let's just drop it. That's what Denzel Washington says too. Like, let it go. We're not going to talk about it. I let go of the hurt in my life. I've dealt with sociopaths in my life. I've dealt with crazy things. I dropped that sack of manure.
And it's amazing when, you know, one of the exercises that I have in recreationism is to have someone take a moment and be the watcher for a day. So kind of try their best to take themselves out of the equation. When you're looking at TV, when you're walking around, take yourself out of yourself and see what type of vibration are you getting from what's happening. And I believe that if we can look at these nightly talks with the press conferences, if we can look at the news and we can take ourselves out of the equation and not be detached to any of the identifications that they say to put you into these groups, you will see that it is a clear system of division and manipulation. You're correct. And I think in some forms, it can be good if you don't get involved, because it can help you realize what not to do. That's what I love about it, is that I even have a section where I talk about cigarettes, alcohol, promiscuous nature. These things in a world of duality are essential for people to make choices. Like, there's not going to be a world where racism is not going to exist. There's not going to be a world where child molesters are not going to exist. Unfortunately, because of the animal natures that take control in so many humans, these things are going to last forever. It is our job as spiritual beings, if we have the hunger to want to advance from those levels, to learn, how did that person get in that situation, and what can I do to make sure I don't get in that situation? And if you start looking at the world from that place, school happens daily on such a big level, and you start to get to a space where you can appreciate the diversity of thought, and you never get into a position where you judge someone as if you are the ruler and commander, because that's where I believe the issue starts, is once I start talking to people. Like if I was to get on a pulpit and start trying to force people to understand the world that I went through, you know what I mean? Like that would cause a lot more division and hatred against my purpose versus me being able to understand you. And unfortunately, there's so many good people you mentioned that because they've been raised right or wrong, if it doesn't align with their thought process, they don't even have the hunger to want to explore that thought. And that, I believe, is where you start, your shell can actually start deteriorating the essence that I believe is thriving from each one of us. And that's one of the things I'll say. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just floating on clouds. Four or 5 days ago, I have close friends and mentors that don't believe that I should feel the way I believe. And we love each other. We've known each other for years, but they're like, man, when I talk to you, I just feel like you are not on my side. But since I know you are on my side, and it kind of mixes me up so much. And because I have some friends that want to send me videos of police brutality or send me videos of what happened here, and because I do want to factor in their thought, I sometimes will look at it. And I remember one day last week where, because of the amount of friends that I allowed to, when you send me something and you're in my circle, I'm gonna look at it, you know, but sometimes I'll cut it off if it gets too crazy. But I remember waking up before my jog and I did not feel the way I usually feel. And I realized the reason why is because I allowed a lot of fear-based videos and thought processes to enter into my psyche. And I remember before I got on my run, I was like, Kinja, by the time you get back from this 9-miler, you got to be back on your job. And I remember jogging and thinking and understanding. And by the time I came back, I actually called my friend and told him that I enjoyed that cleanse because it made me identify even more with some of the people that feel this way, but they don't have an outlet. So they end up feeling this way from the time they're 8 years old to the time they're 30. So yeah, if I see a reason for me to get out here and outlet, I'm gonna do it, because I have the weight not only of my regular husband or wife, not only of my bills, not only of my student debt, not only of the fact that I got declined for the loan, but I got all of these people telling me I'm oppressed too. Yeah, I'm gonna get out here and make you understand that this ain't gonna happen no more. So I get it. Look, I get it at such a high level. I just want you to know there are levels to growth. And you know, getting out there is one step, but there's so many other steps. Like, I have not protested one time, but I've helped over 50 people of my shade, 60 people of other shades through this time, manage through some of the things that they had going on so that they could be a better tool in their household. So that's another thing. Once people get into the division world, they don't understand how we all can play different roles in a unified vibration lift. For instance, I've read on my Facebook post, if you don't say something about what's happening here, you are the enemy. Huh? But so, I mean, if I'm not the type of person that wants to get loud and verbal about racism or religion, but I provide for my family, I teach my kid how to be a good person, I don't cheat on my wife or my husband, I love everybody I see, I'm the enemy just because I don't agree with you about posting on media? And see, I'm at a place right now where I can't be mad at that person, because that person is only expressing themselves at the level that they've been taught. They've been taught that it's me or you, There's no togetherness at all. So it's amazing. And what I'm so thankful about, literally, as I'm expressing some of these thoughts that honestly, I don't have the ability to express because of my way of wanting to stay in a more universal lane, which I think I'm doing now. I just really think this is a valuable conversation because hopefully people can see that, wow, a person of ivory shade, a person of senna or chocolate shade, a woman, a male, wow, they can align and have different backgrounds, but want the same thing for your children and my future children, knock on wood, as we go down the path. So thank you. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it. And as you're calling the ivory, inside I'm like, I really want to be tan.
Tan. That's right. Exactly. That's how I feel when somebody called me black. And I'm like, yo, can I be chocolate?
I really want to be tan, but give me 2 months. We'll come back together and you call me tan. You'll be like,
no more ivory. I'm sorry about that. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Ivory, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, I want the sun to shine. I want to go to the beach. I want to be tan.
You're tan from your on out.
I would love to end this with just a quote, and I love this quote. It's by Louis B. Sneed, and he said,
okay.
To forgive is to set a prisoner free, and to understand that that prisoner is you. So whatever we're holding inside, we're not helping George Floyd. We're not helping anybody. We are hurting ourselves.
And when you said that just now, you made me think about 2 instances that happened when I sold for a living. That included 2 different people that weren't taught about forgiveness, that happened to be one on the tan side, one on the chocolate or senna side. I remember selling an older couple a pretty big package, and the husband, they looked like they were in their 70s, and the wife was doing all the talking. And after about a 4-hour presentation, the gentleman was about to say something to me, but his wife looked, and because the way she looked at was like, oh my goodness, what is my husband about to say? And he said, and he was someone of the tan skin category, him and his wife. He said to me, I didn't know you all could talk like that. And I remember back when I was 7, he just started going along. I remember going to a hanging of people that looked like you. And it was so amazing because they closed a very big deal. His wife kind of looked embarrassed, but I understood so clearly how our backgrounds lead us to the way we are. And so let me make sure we can get this. During the whole presentation, he didn't say anything to me because over 70 years, he was raised to think that I couldn't even communicate at the level that I did. So he found out within those hours, wow, his wife and them bought from me. And I learned, wow, even though he might not have instantly changed in that instant, I still think that's a step towards that man understanding that, wow, people that look like me are no different from people that look like him. But then on the flip side, I remember an older woman that was along my shade that we were just having a conversation. And I remember her saying, you help all these people that don't like you because they were raised to look down on you. I don't know if you realize when you help the enemy, you're taking away from the ancestors' blood, sweat, and tears of on them cotton fields. And she got so animated. You make me feel so disrespected when you associate with these people. And I was like, I didn't say anything because my thoughts were, wow. I saw this happened after the other situation. I'm seeing what people are dealing with every single day. And what made me feel a lot better about this journey is that this woman right now is probably one of the most universally thinking people that I know, because she went through the change. I remember her calling me and saying, "KINJA, I get it. And, you know, the fact that you look so young, I could be your grandmother, you know, it makes me feel a little bad that I really discredited you for things that didn't have nothing to do with the world that we're in right now." And so I say all that to say that I have had personal situations with people on both sides of the spectrum, and that allows me to have somewhat of a better understanding. I don't justify hatred. I don't justify damaging. I don't justify any type of thing that has to do with hurting to someone else. But I'm gonna be honest, I understand how you were raised with the mixture of looking at media and believing it. You will be literally walking outside into a war field. And you will literally be in a position where you are almost in armor. Nobody can tell it because your spirit is what gets contorted along those lines. But people will look at you and you will think they're the enemy, and they're just somebody trying to get through in the Whole Foods line. So I hope that people that take the time to kind of explore this conversation could literally just start with themselves and try to rid any of the generational baggage that they may have within before they get on the pulpit and try to talk about some of the things that cannot be changed until the people that are involved do what we're talking about. Like, that's why I'm so glad I had the years of sales that I had, so that when I speak, I can not only speak from making a point, but hopefully get someone to have a serious inquiry about their chain of thought as well. You know what I mean? And I think that's the issue with social media right now, is anybody could just get mad, feel any way, just get on social media and become a leader. And we have people that want to be led because they haven't taken the time to lead themselves, that just follow the herd. And before you know it, you got hundreds, thousands, billions of people behind a foundation that's not really solid, that's cracking, and that every time it cracks, people try to build it back up, because believe it or not, like you mentioned, there are people that benefit off of me and you hating each other. There are people that benefit from, believe it or not, these protests that are going on. There are people that benefit from when the stock market plunges. There are people that benefit when we walk around with masks on, where all we can see is little eyes and can't see the smile under the mask. And once people start realizing, wow, who can benefit from what I am falling into security with, it just will give you a wider view of the world, so that we might not be able to change it instantly, but we can instantly change ourselves to help the solution. And the more of us that can do that, the better things can be. Hope that makes sense.
KINJA, I'm going to end it there. I think that was wonderful. I'm so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful for you being you.
Thank you. I'm so honored as well. And I send love to your family, your growing, your little troops, your husband, your purpose, everything you're doing. I send you nothing but love. And I truly, truly thank you for giving me the opportunity to share in this unique time. So I thank you.
I thank you. I hope we do it again, KINJA. Have a wonderful day.
Blessings.
Blessings.